Subnautica is one of the best aquatic horror games to date. The flora and fauna you find on the alien planet can be both a spectacle and terrify you. But while you're playing away, you may notice you leave a trail behind. A lot of things you build clutter the oceans and pollute the planet's natural ecosystem from the very second you land there. The damage you deal isn't avoidable, but what if you wanted to try to minimize it? What if you wanted to keep the planet as clean and safe as you could? Can you beat Subnautica without building anything? Before I start, however, I need to mention Team Seas. I'm sure you all have heard of Team Trees, a campaign launched by Mr. Beast and Mark Rober to plant 20 million trees around the world. Well, they're doing it again. This time, however, instead of planting trees, he's removing trash from our oceans. For each dollar donated, he's going to be removing 1 pound of trash from our oceans, with a goal of 30 million. Our oceans, rivers, streams, lakes are all full of trash, and that's terrible for our world. So much so that there's an entire trash island in the middle of the Pacific. If you want to help, you can do this by either donating or going to pick up some sweet merch in the description down below. Subnautica, unlike other games I've done challenge runs for, doesn't have a lady in your head telling you where to go and what to do. Okay, well that's not what I mean. You don't have quests or even a general directive besides survive, so figuring out where to go and what to do is a bit more difficult. On top of that, I can't build anything, and by that I mean anything built by using the habitat builder, I can't use. I wanted to do more, but the game just isn't beatable without ships, so I decided to just settle on not building any habitats. Originally, though, just so you know, this video was about beating it without tools, but I quickly realized that beating Subnautica without any tools is genuinely impossible. So, starting off, I was in an escape pod. Looking up, I saw the ship, the Aurora in the distance exploding, and a panel broke free which decapitated me, and I beat Subnautica without building anything. I'm only kidding, I actually woke up to a burning fire, which I quickly put out. Opening up my PDA, it told me my only objective was to survive on an alien world, and climbing out of my escape pod, it showed me a bird thing, and the Aurora collapsed into the ocean. With my first steps into the ocean, I was almost blown up, and I searched around for resources to stay alive. Now, like I said, Subnautica doesn't really tell you what to do. The game is all about exploration, and because of this, I was pretty lost as to what to do. Eventually, I realized that using no tools was quite impossible, so I built a scanner and a repair tool. I figured I would beat it with as little tools as possible, but as you can tell by me changing the challenge halfway through, it wasn't really possible. Glitching a piece of scrap metal into my escape pod, I repaired my escape pod and found out from my radio that rescue wasn't coming. I was also told that the Aurora may explode, which isn't very environmentally safe, but I can't really stop a quantum detonation. My newly crafted Sea Glide, I went out searching for more engrams to help me survive. The beginning areas of this game are very pretty and atmospheric, reminiscent of coral reefs and seaweed forests in real life, which is a really amazing introduction. While exploring, I found another life pod, sadly destroyed and at the bottom of the ocean. Inside was a log from a crew member who was stuck in there, Ozzy.
Ozzy's log. It's the day of the crash. I don't know what the heck is happening. I'm scared and I'm not going outside. There are shadows in the water under the hatch, but I can't tell if they're rocks or aliens. And there's weird-looking caves nearby. The Aurora was carrying everything needed to build the phase gate. Mobile vehicle bays, bioreactors, propulsion cannons. It had a cinema. There was a zero-G gym. My cafe. I don't understand how we're here now. I don't know why no one's coming for me.
You can hear the fear in his voice, and it's a really good introduction to this game's more scary side, the depths. Sadly, however, it's gonna be a little while before I can get there. I found a bioreactor blueprint, which I couldn't use, and met my first reef back. Reef backs are an excellent introduction to the massive creatures in this game, as they're huge, yes, but they don't pose any threat. They're the whales of Subnautica. They just peacefully stroll through the game. I also found Seamoth fragments, which would end up being my best friend for the first portion of the game. With the Seamoth blueprint in hand, I needed to get a mobile vehicle bay to build the Seamoth, which is thankfully not made with the Habitat Builder. Oddly enough, the mobile vehicle bay is actually kind of difficult to find, while the Seamoth isn't. Maybe that's just a me thing, but every time I've played this game, it took me forever to find the mobile vehicle bay. Either way, I scoured the ocean's floor, making sure to make some ingredients for the Seamoth along the way, to find any piece of the MVB, for short, as I could. I found another life pod 3, with a giant hole in the side, seemingly blown up from the inside. Grabbing a new survival log, I listened in and...
You really think it'll carry 2 of us?
Your regular Sea Glide tows a mass of 80 kilograms at over 30 kilometers an hour. The power cellar rig to this one should double that.
You think there's something out there that's faster?
I'm sure. And that's assuming it doesn't overload 3 meters from the life pod.
You're calm about this?
I'm seeing the engineering problem. If I stop seeing the maths, I'll be terrified.
It's pretty obvious they were desperate to leave and mess with the Sea Glide, trying to make it work stronger than before. That explosion from the inside tells us the rest, though. as it probably was from the sea glide, which most likely killed them both instantly. But you can't find any remains or any log telling them where they went. And that's another great detail about this game. You can't find anyone else, not even a skeleton. And this plays perfectly into the aspect of horror, as you're never told specifically what happened to them. You just know they're not there. I got a warning that the local radiation from the Aurora's drive core reached a critical state, telling me the quantum detonation will occur within 2 hours. Again, not exactly environmentally friendly, but not much I can do to stop it. Committing bladderfish genocide for water, I went searching for the mobile vehicle bay fragments, but I still couldn't find any. I did find a propulsion cannon that I wasn't going to use since it was still a no tools video at this point. I also unlocked a chic plot plant, which was vital to beating this game. Making sure to almost get stuck in the wreckage I found, the explosion happened, but it wouldn't be a Yukon video without something going wrong, and the game completely frozen during the entirety of the explosion. I was pretty upset about this since I want to get the wacky explosion on film, but I couldn't really help it. If you do want to see it, however, here's Markiplier freaking out to it.
Wow! Nice.
Learning the laser cutter blueprint, I found some floating chunks of rock that I never returned to, and I listened to a message from a nearby ship, the Sunbeam.
This is Avery Quinn of Trading Ship Sunbeam. Aurora, do you read? Over? Nothing but vacuum. These Altera ships. They run low on engine grease, send an SOS, you offer to help, they don't pick up. Aurora, I'm out on the far side of the system. It's gonna take more than a week to reach your position. Do you still need our assistance? Over. I'll try them again tomorrow. Damn charter's gonna have us blowing our credits running errands for Altera. See what the long-range scans pick up in the meantime.
He seemed a little upset with Altera, the corporation that made your ship, the Aurora, which gives us some insight into the world you're in, which is neat. Now, I've played this game before, and I know how to beat it. You see these clouds? They're always there, and they're placed there to hide some islands for you to discover later. Going to one is how you progress, so I decided I don't need a Seamoth and went over there on my Sea Glide. Arriving there, I found this giant alien arch as well as a lot of technology. It shows that we aren't the first to arrive here, even giving hope that we aren't alone. Outside, I found a giant alien station of some sort, which had this purple tablet outside. Placing it inside this console labeled force field control, disabled the force field. Wow, you bet you didn't see that one coming. And going inside, I scanned myself to find out I was infected with some sort of bacteria. My head voice didn't know what the place was made out of, weirdly, and I was going to explore it, but I was out of food. So, heading all the way back to my life pod, I made some food and had a meal. Then listened to my radio, which told me I was being hunted.
9 new biological subjects designated. Mode. Hunting. Analyzing. Sharing subject locations with other agents.
And then I came all the way back to the island to explore that alien station thing I'd found. On the island, the station failed to load, but I glitched inside it anyways. And upon exploring it, I found a databank that my head voice tried to translate it. Failing, she did tell me the databanks were some form of SSD computer and produced a low frequency radio wave, which was likely how the aliens that built it communicated. It also said the aliens had a higher mental power than us, which isn't exactly surprising. Going deeper, I found my first ion cube, which, after scanning it, I was told was an energy source with a strength of about 5 kilotons of TNT, which for context is about a third of the explosive power of the Little Boy, which was the atomic bomb that devastated Hiroshima in World War II. As any would do upon finding an almost nuclear device, I shoved it in my pocket and continued exploring. Discovering how to fly, I found an alien rifle which I sadly couldn't remove, as well as this neat little bot. I wonder what it could be used for. Oh, it's a device capable of wiping out the majority of the solar system? Oh yeah, that's real cool, thanks. Thankfully, this device was malfunctioned, but it didn't exactly keep me reassured. Disabling another force field, I found this station, which, upon sticking my hand in it, always stick your hand in things you don't understand, kids, stabbed me and gave me a message.
The control panel is broadcasting a message. Translation reads, "Warning, infected individuals may not disable the weapon. This planet is under quarantine."
With the knowledge that the planet I'm in is under quarantine from a disease of which I was already infected, was kinda scary. It also told me that the reason the Aurora was down was this base, which is a weapon, by the way. From this, I could also conclude that if the Sunbeam were to come to this planet, it wouldn't survive either. So I either had to turn off the weapon before they arrived, or tell them not to come. Finding another arch, I scanned it to reveal that its intended purpose was unclear. Thanks, PDA. Floating up again, I left the station and went back to my life pod, where I got a message from the Sunbeam telling me they were coming to the planet. Which, as I previously discussed, is a terrible idea. Going back to searching for the MVB, I realized I was directly behind the Aurora, which, if you didn't know, was a danger zone. I unlocked the vending machine, downloaded some corrupted data, and almost drowned inside this giant wreck. Having not learned my lesson, I went back inside, and luckily the MVB fragment I needed was inside there. For the MVB, I needed a titanium ingot and a power cell. Thankfully, I had everything for the power cell and the titanium ingot, so I was quickly able to make it and just slap it outside. The Seamoth was also surprisingly cheap to make, and I already had pretty much everything I needed to make it with. So after getting the lead I needed, I crafted all the ingredients, tossed them into the MVB, and made myself a Seamoth. As can be expected by the first ship, it isn't exactly a battleship, but it does give yourself a good sense of safety when you're in it. Finally, with a Seamoth, I went back to the island for some reason and then headed straight back home. I don't really know what I was doing here. Either way, I needed to make a lead suit to get to the Aurora, or else I would die of radiation. I already had the lead, I just needed a fiber mesh, which was surprisingly easy to get with just slapping some creep vines with a knife. With my fiber mesh, I created my radiation suit and headed to the Aurora. If you remember, I said the back of the Aurora was a danger zone, and the truth is the entirety of the Aurora is dangerous. But by sticking to its side, you can be relatively safe, thankfully. But that doesn't mean you're perfectly safe, and just by being here, I was scared. I was told that the radioactivity from the Aurora would destroy the alien ecosystem if not contained within the next 24 hours. So in order to preserve the alien oceans, I needed to turn the Aurora's drive core off. Besides getting lost and not knowing where to go, it went pretty well. I found this neat little walkway and snuck inside the ship from there. Inside I found a Seamoth bay, which was useless since I already had one, but it did give me an upgrade for my Seamoth, which would allow me to go another 100 meters deeper into the ocean without it dying. This was honestly the entire main reason for coming here, since I needed it to explore deeper in the game's oceans. I also had my first hallucination. Finding the Aurora's drive core, I need to repair it to get rid of the radiation. I also found a Cyclops module, but I don't have one yet, so it's pretty useless. While repairing, I encountered the worst death in gaming history.
Bruh, look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No.
Yeah, so you remember how I was going to do this originally with no tools? Yeah, well, because of that, I left the knife inside my escape pod. I did this since I wanted to use it as little as possible, but without it, I couldn't get the bleeder off in time. And when I died, I lost the Seamoth depth module, which was the main reason for me being there. This means, in order to go deeper into the oceans, I would need to either A, make a modification station, which you can only build with the habitat builder, which is failing the challenge by the way, or B, make a Cyclops. Thankfully, the Cyclops is made the same way the Seamoth is, so I won't fail the challenge by making it. With my goal and future in mind, I went back to the Aurora, fixed its drive core this time, and left to find parts of the Cyclops. First, my own Seamoth killed me, and after repairing the damage my lifeless corpse did to the Seamoth, I went back to find another escape pod, but it just wasn't there. Getting back into my Seamoth, the camera bugged out, and before finding the Cyclops, I decided to check out the other islands since there are two of them. Scanning a reef back for the first time, I made it to the second island. This one was covered with a lot more plant life and actually seemed like a decent place to live. And speaking of living out here, I found remains of someone's home. Turns out we're not the first to arrive on this planet, and a ship crashed here before us named the Degassi. Apparently they found this island and lived here for a while, but after a huge storm almost destroyed their food supply, they decided to go deeper into the ocean to try to find a living down there. This is where the game forces you to go deeper to find out more, as the next base they build is at a depth of 250 meters. So after eating some nice fruit, I found this game's repeating ocean textures and found out this island is held up by the jellyfish from SpongeBob. Arriving at their newly proposed habitat, turns out the deep jellyfish room forest they lived in wasn't deep enough for some reason, and the members of the Degassi, after some arguing, decided to go deeper into the ocean. A lot more than that happens here, by the way, but I don't want to spoil too much as the game is really good, and if you haven't played it, I can strongly recommend it. My only real complaint is that there isn't much replayability in Subnautica, and the enameled glass portion you shall see soon, with their next habitat being 500 meters below the surface, and audio long remind me of college.
Lately I've been watching the crab snakes. They ambush their prey as it tries to feed on the mushrooms they hide in. What they don't eat settles on the seabed, which fertilizes the mushrooms, which feeds the herbivores, and so the chain continues. Co-evolution gives me the fuzzies.
and I knew that in order to continue I needed to make my Cyclops. After slaughtering more fish, I stopped being sidetracked and went to find the Cyclops parts. Some of them can be found in a relatively safe area called the Mushroom Forest, so I decided to go there, and to my astonishment I found some, but they were pretty rare. Unlike the Seamoth, the Cyclops takes a total of 9 pieces to make, 3 engine parts, 3 bridge parts, and 3 hull parts. So getting these pieces can take a while, and doing what I did and choosing to not go into the dangerous waters they're coming in, it can be hard. Watching a herd of reef back, I did finish the hull fragments, but I couldn't find the rest of the pieces. I checked inside the wreck, but I just couldn't find anything, and I ended up drowning because of an invisible wall. Heading back to my Seamoth, I found this alien looking vent in the floor, which after scanning it told me it was pumping water from up here down somewhere very warm, which is excellent foreshadowing. After some searching, I decided it would be best to go to the dangerous waters to find the parts, and this is where I ran into my first Reaper Leviathan. The Reaper Leviathan, and all Leviathans for that matter, are some of the best examples of horror done right. The entire time you're in their area, you can hear them yelling, so you know you're not alone. You go from feeling safe inside your Seamoth to being terrified. You're no longer safe, you're in their territory now, and they control what happens. To them, you're just another fish. Not finding any pieces in the front of the ship, I went to the back, which is much more dangerous, but contains a lot more of Cyclops parts. I thought I found a drop-off, but it was actually just the world not loading, and I entered probably the scariest part in this entire game. If you don't know me, I can't handle horror at all, and even watching this footage back is genuinely scaring me. Knowing what's here, seeing and hearing it all just terrifies me. It's so well done. There are other aquatic or underwater games, but none of them do this horror well, and I must applaud Subnautica for this. Getting scared by a rock. Oh my... I found some Cyclops parts finally, and they were pretty common too. But I couldn't get out of here without being seen, of course. Oh no. Thank God I got away, and he even led me straight to the last Cyclops engine part that I needed. With only 2 more pieces to go, I crept around, scared out of my mind, and luckily got them without being torn to shreds by a Reaper Leviathan. Again, like the Seamoth, the Cyclops actually wasn't that hard to make. I already had this stuff pretty much. I just needed the enameled glass, which, if you recall, I hate gathering in this game. Enameled glass is glass mixed with the enamel off of a stalker tooth. But because, unlike other survival games, you can't kill any animals in this game, I can't just go harvest them. No, in Subnautica you need to pretty much wait for their teeth to drop. Their teeth drop by when they bite into some scrap metal, so if you, without knowingly, just turn all your scrap metal into titanium, well, then you're out of luck. Thankfully, I knew about this and prepared, dropping a bunch of scrap metal down near a group of them, and watched them all bite into it until their teeth fell out. With my enameled glass, I was ready to make the Cyclops, and after moving the MVB into deeper water, I constructed it. I was told I needed 3 people to pilot the sub, but being the Chad I am, I completely ignored my head voice and piloted it alone. The Cyclops, unlike the Seamoth, is pretty much perfectly safe. Being much bigger, it's harder to move around tight spaces, but the safety it gives, along with it being able to dive much deeper and even being able to build in the interior of the sub, practically makes it a mobile home. I kept the lights off because I thought they would drain the power more. They don't. This was a complete waste of my time and makes the video look way worse for you. I'm sorry about my ineptitude. Putting the upgrade I got earlier in the Cyclops made it use less power to operate. It made it pretty much never have to worry about power. With a maximum crush depth of 500 meters, it meant I could finally go to the depths I need to go towards to find the Degassi's next base. Going deeper, I entered the Grand Reef, where I was introduced to more deep-sea wildlife. Reminiscent of our actual deep oceans, the wildlife down here is alien and otherworldly, something you would never see near the surface. I eventually found this giant squid called a crab squid, and it's genuinely terrifying. To make things worse, it's right next to the Degassi's habitat. Going outside, it attacked me and took out 1/3 of my health, which made me panic and realize if I die outside the Cyclops, then that's it. Any death I have in the Cyclops mean I would need to make a new one in order to get back down here, since I can't build using the habitat builder. So even one death would mean hours of progress lost, which is kind of terrifying, considering a lot of this game is just swimming from point A to point B. Going back outside to face my fears, I got a copy machine blueprint as well as a carry-on bag that I never used. The crab squid never left me alone, however, but at the very least I was safe within the Degassi's habitat. Listening to some audio logs revealed that the members of the Degassi had a huge argument, after which Bart left and the 2 remaining members, the captain and Marguerite, were attacked. Listening to another log reveals that Bart succumbed to the illness atop the island, and the other 2 didn't survive what sounds like a Reaper Leviathan attack. With this somber note, I knew that the next alien facility was 800 meters below sea level, so I needed to upgrade my Cyclops. Thankfully, unlike the Seamoth, the Cyclops is its own special fabricator for its upgrades inside itself, so all I needed was to make a depth module using that. Going back home, I got a radio message telling me that the sunbeam was coming, so time was running out to disable the gun. In order to upgrade the Cyclops, I needed a plasteel ingot, which was pretty easy to get, and 3 rubies. Rubies are only found deep down, so after getting the plasteel ingot, I had to go back down in the depths to find the rubies, which was kind of annoying. Oh well. I got bonked by some electric eels and wandered too close to the Aurora, and a Reaper Leviathan found me. But unlike the Seamoth, the Cyclops is much safer, and it hit me once then left me alone. Finding another escape pod along the way, sadly it was upside down and torn open like the others. Inside was a creature decoy blueprint as well as the man's audio log, where he said he was being attacked by Reaper Leviathans and that he was swimming for the Aurora. So it's pretty obvious what happened to him. The most scary dialogue in the game played.
Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it?
And I had my first encounter with the Warper. Remember when I said something was hunting me earlier? Well, this is it. Thankfully, they can't attack me while I'm in the Cyclops, and I'm perfectly safe in it. Again, the Cyclops is much safer than any other vehicle. I mean, it repelled a Reaper Leviathan. The voices in my head proved to be a prophet as I got attacked by a Reaper Leviathan, but thankfully I got away with my Cyclops only at half health. I was greeted by a Reef back, which told me I was back in safety. One of the hardest parts of this game is knowing where to go, as it's very confusing, and there aren't really easy ways to navigate. Eventually got the hang of it, but it's probably one of the hardest parts of this game in general. I collected some rubies I needed for the upgrade and realized I forgot to make the plasteel ingot back in my escape pod. Heading all the way back, I committed more bladderfish genocide, made a titanium ingot, went to gather the lithium to turn my titanium into plasteel, and somehow beached my Seamoth. After unbeaching it, I got my lithium, went back to the escape pod, and made my plasteel ingot. With my new maximum depth of 900 meters, I went back down deep in the oceans, where I entered probably the coolest biome, the Lost River. It's a river of brine, which, fun fact, actually exists in real life, and it's covered in fossils and bones of dead animals, including this giant skeleton I'm sure you've all seen before. It also has a brand new Leviathan, although I never got great footage of it, the Ghost Leviathan, but seeing that will come with time. And first, I went to the alien structure. I knew it was located at 800 meters below sea level, so I knew it was a little bit deeper and nearby. I found this skeleton and went to scan it, but then I realized something. It is burning hot outside. Even being out here for a little bit would kill me. So even though I found the alien base, I needed to leave to make a new suit that would survive the heat and pressure down here. So, going back up the way I came, I went back to my pod where I saw what I needed to make the reinforced suit, which was synthetic fibers, diamonds, and titanium. Thankfully, I had the diamonds and titanium, but I had no idea how to make synthetic fiber. So after searching it up, I found out that it's made from benzene and fiber mesh. Benzene is from 3 blood oil, which are these ruby red oil deposit things I had already picked up. Tragically though, I had only grabbed 2. So I had to go all the way back down to the blood kelps, grab 1 more blood oil, and come all the way back up to make the benzene. This took about 20 minutes for just 1 resource. Thankfully, I made the benzene and extra even, then finally made my suit. Really taking up around half an hour, I finally went back down the ocean and snuck through the Lost River again to enter the disease research facility. I also discovered here that the fog from the Lost River overlaps the HUD that displays on your Cyclops, which is a bit of an oversight. You'd think a game they finished and even made a sequel to wouldn't have such an easy layering issue like this, but oh well, I guess. Inside the disease containment facility, I found more ion cubes as well as lost specimens on display. Seemingly, the aliens were trying to find a cure for the virus, but it looks like they never did. Scanning a massive piranha skeleton, I found parts of biological matter, which turns out to be parts of the warper that is still following me around, which means that these things haunting me were created by the aliens to contain the virus, which is pretty easy to figure honestly, but it's cool nonetheless. I found out that this giant skeleton I tried to scan earlier was the animal that actually destroyed this facility, seemingly trying to get her eggs back. Hopefully I don't meet one of them though, right? Scanning myself showed that the infection was spreading quickly, appearing on my hands as green pustules. My time was short, so I needed to cure myself as quick as possible. Looking at the stages, it seemed like I was on stage 2. Stage 3 was unpredictable alterations to biological structure, and then stage 4 was death. Not wanting to be an abomination or die, it was imperative that I cure myself as soon as possible. I also found out, however, that a Leviathan class named the Sea Emperor had some potential for immunity to the virus, so I knew there was a way. Next up, I needed to upgrade my Cyclops death module again. All I needed was the plasteel ingot and nickel ore. So it actually was pretty easy, except for the fact that nickel ore was next to impossible to find. While looking for nickel, I got my first scene with the Ghost Leviathan. Terrifying. but I never actually was in any danger of him, so he didn't really bother me at all. I genuinely don't know how it is to be attacked by one. Last time I played this game, they weren't in it yet, and while playing this time, they didn't attack me at all, but I assume it's equally as terrifying as the Reaper. I found some nice ghost weed, as well as a gel sack, which I picked up just because I didn't know what it was. Finding out that the gel sack was used for aerogel, I held on to it because I knew aerogel was rather useful later down the road. This, however, is when it hit me. I realized you don't craft the Mark II depth module in the Cyclops. No, just like the Seamoth, you need to make it yourself. Now, you can't just swim down there without the Cyclops, you just don't have enough oxygen, and even if you did, there's lots of things that would gladly kill you, so there's no way to pass without it. So I had to fail the challenge in order to continue. Truth be told though, it's not really failing the challenge. I don't need to make a base since you can just build inside the Cyclops itself. So I just tossed the modification station in there as well. So at the very least, no base building was required. The modification station put down, I debated on whether putting anything else down while I was at it, but since it felt kind of cheap and cheating to do so, I chose not to. Except for this aquarium with a whole fish. What? I needed a buddy. With the challenge somewhat failed, I went back down into the depths once more to find the nickel. Nickel isn't rare, it just blends in really well, so finding it is a bit of pain. Plus, the Lost River isn't exactly safe for you to be outside of your Cyclops in, so it turns into panicked quick runs from your ship back to get the ore back to your ship. Seeing this massive rib cage, you might recall the giant skull splattered all over the internet. Well, I wanted footage of it, so I went to get some, and it was very closely guarded by a ghost leviathan. Being an absolute pansy, I got too scared and decided to not go over there. But if you do want to see someone react to it, here's Markiplier again.
What the hell? Oh, god damn it! What the fuck?
With the nickel finally collected, I went to craft the upgrade. Forgot the plasteel, and grabbing it, I crafted the upgrade correctly this time and tossed it into the Cyclops. With a crush depth of 13,000 meters, I figured that was it for upgrades and was done upgrading my sub. I mean, the final area was only 14,000 meters under sea level, so I figured I'd pretty much beat the game at this point. Although I had somewhat failed, since I hadn't built a base yet, I was really confident in this run. I had one more plan to do before going into the depths. There's an upgrade you can get for the Cyclops where it generates power based on the ambient temperature, with a temperature minimum of 35 degrees Celsius. Knowing the final area is called the underwater lava zone or something like that, I figured it would be quite hot, so having infinitely generating power sounded a bit good. Going to a rack to get the blueprint, it was suspended in what looks like an underwater tree. Inside, I found the data box with a module and looked at the crafting recipe. I needed polyaniline, kyanite, and a wiring kit. Kyanite can only be found in the lava biome, so at the very least I would need to go down there to build it, but polyaniline and the wiring kit were easy. Polyaniline is made by combining deep shrooms with salt to create hydrochloric acid, then combining the hydrochloric acid with gold to make the polyaniline. Christ, I'm talking about so much chemicals I feel like a science YouTuber. Hi guys, Nile Red here. Today I'm going to be making high explosive in my parents' garage. It is very dangerous, and any accident could cause With everything prepared to make the upgrade, I felt I was finally ready and entered the last biome in the game. Before I left though, I found a peeper stuck in my ship.
What? Man, come on now, get that pimp off there. Come on, somebody come get this, man. Come on now. Come on, get that pimp off. That's just too much doggone pimp. I don't really want to see this no more.
Making sure to get lost and be unable to find where I'm supposed to go, I said hi to what I thought would be the last ever reef back I saw. But before going down in the deep, I had a giant brain plan. I won't tell you what it is, but all will be made clear soon. Taking out my Seamoth, I grabbed an ion cube and went to the quarantine enforcement platform, you know, the thing with the giant gun, and watched the island phase into view. I went to the giant arch I saw earlier and put the ion cube inside it, turning it into a Stargate SG-1 type of portal. Although Stargate portals are a lot cooler, it teleported me to the other island, which was way closer to my Cyclops, and with my Seamoth parked at the giant gun thing, I swam over to my Cyclops and took it deep down into the ocean. You may be curious as to why I did this, but all will be explained soon, my friend. Going through the cave system, I came across this Ori in the Blind Forest-esque tree, and after scanning it, it turns out all those blue ball things are actually ghost leviathan eggs, which is kind of scary knowing I'm in their nest. Watching a manta ray tweak out, I descended, and the ambient color turned red as I entered the lava biome. The biggest issue with the lava biome isn't its heat or its monsters, it's these leech larva slug things. They attach to your ship and feed off of its power, so you need to constantly get out and whack them off. So if you don't, your power will drain constantly. This can be countered with a force field upgrade I never got, or that thermal energy generator upgrade. Both work really well, One gets them all off your sub, and the other just generates enough power to outperform the slugs. Either way, they're an annoyance, but they aren't the worst thing in the world. I kept my eye out for any kyanite I could pick up, but the only chunks I could see were acquirable with a Prawn Suit, a vehicle I didn't get yet. Not wanting to go back to the Aurora to get one, I searched up and read yes, they do spawn on their own, so I knew they existed, just not where. I also heard this ominous roar. Right after it, I found this cool Reaper skeleton, but I was getting scared by the animals that wanted to murder me, so I decided against scanning it. But for the life of me, I couldn't find any kyanite, and in my pursuit, I saw this. Remember that skeleton from earlier? Well, this is what it came from. This is the biggest, baddest Leviathan in the game. The Sea Dragon Leviathan. It can destroy Cyclops with ease, so being as close to it as I am right now is absolutely terrifying. Thankfully, not moving in the Cyclops doesn't make any noise and means I'm relatively safe. I also got to witness its fireball attack, although it kinda missed and just bugged out. Still unable to find any kyanite, I decided to leave the area so my power wouldn't be sapped by the slugs and look it up. And guess what? It's in an area called the Lava Castle, which was right next to this guy. I just didn't look for it since I was so scared of the Sea Dragon. Now you may be wondering why I'm cutting from being down there to being on the surface of my Seamoth. You see, I did this amazing thing where I played an hour's worth of footage and completely forgot to press record. So I will draw you in a masterful animation what happened. I went down in the Cyclops, found the Sea Castle while avoiding the Sea Dragon, and inside I found kyanite, but I also found an alien base. Inside was some ion cubes and a blue tablet, which I had not found yet. But also inside there was a portal that, once activated, teleported me back to the quarantine enforcement platform. I had this giant brain reveal planned for when you guys see my genius, but my intellect can only be countered by myself, so to make up for my giant brain move, I was a moron and forgot to record. Back in my game, however, I took my Seamoth back to the ship. I honestly forget what I got in it for, and somehow my Seamoth learned to fly for a brief second, before it forgot to fly again and beached itself in the station. This pissed me off a lot. I just lost my Seamoth to the game bugging out, and considering how useful it is, this was a bit annoying to say the least. Thankfully though, it can be ignored because I learned that the next base we needed to go to was only 1.4 kilometers underwater. I also learned how to make ion batteries and power cells, but I never actually ended up doing it for my subs and equipment. I just never got around to it. After waiting for my power to charge up a bit, from this point on the game started being really bad with loading and I'm unsure why, I went back to the main world to gather some supplies as well as make a new Seamoth. Each time I took portals, it took around 10 minutes to teleport me. I did manage to get my old Seamoth unstuck because of this, but it also hinders me a lot during this recording. I don't really know why the game started having issues here and nowhere else, but it got me really annoyed. So anywhere past this point, I kinda just wanted to beat the game already, because losing progress and waiting upwards of a half an hour for a load screen is completely ridiculous. Taking my depth module out, I quickly upgraded and put it back in. Taking a lot of damage in the process, but oh well. I decided to wait until it was pretty much fully charged, and it took forever. By the time I left, the battery was at 92%, but this took about as long as a portal load screen, so it wasn't that bad. Heading deeper, I noticed my camera had somehow drifted off of my submarine and was floating next to it. And I got so deep, the water was so hot that even with slugs on me, I was gaining more power than I was losing. Down here, however, there was another sea dragon which patrolled the area. But getting nearby, I got another vision.
Want to help you.
Parking right outside, I entered the facility, forgot my tablets, went back for them, then I disabled the force fields and enter. A warning displayed.
Translating local alien broadcast. Warning, vaccine development program terminated. Emperor egg hatching project terminated. Live specimens terminated. Evacuate immediately.
And I found an ion cube fabricator, which would have been nice, but I needed a prawn suit to use it, so it was pretty useless for me. Inside was a bunch of artifacts, including a sword from Earth that still had blood on it. Even the DNA matched known heads of state from the 13th century. Which means the aliens who built this place knew of human life and even studied us, which is pretty interesting, if not a bit concerning. It also had a yin and yang symbol, which meant either they introduced the Chinese to yin and yang, or that it's a universal concept. Still cool nonetheless. They also had a nanobot case with nanobots so small they were unable to be seen, as well as a translator I sadly could not use. Exploring more, I found a room full of eggs, which the voices in my head said was a biological archive. There's a terminal that gave me data on the Sea Emperor, which told me, unlike the other three that want to viciously kill me, the Sea Emperor is more like a reef pack in which they filter freedom microorganisms, which is nice knowing that the voices I've been hearing all game won't try to murder me. It also told me that it produces a certain enzyme called enzyme 42, which is the only thing in the universe that can counteract the disease, as they called it, the Chara bacteria. There was also a pump station which showed peepers coming in infected and leaving cured, which explains how the world didn't just die from the virus. There was also a lot more of those portal arch things, 4 to be exact, each requiring an ion cube to be used. In order to explore more though, I needed a blue tablet. Not wanting to go all the way back up to the surface to make one, I decided I would just build a fabricator inside the Cyclops. At the time I was upset over this, but looking back I already failed and I also never actually used the Cyclops again, so this kinda just saved me a little bit of time. But again, I didn't know about it back then, so this did really annoy me. With the blue tablet in hand, I entered the last area of this facility. Inside was a giant pool of water, which after I dived in, the best scene in the game played.
Are you here to play? Others came here once. They built these walls. They played alone. They bored me. Now they're gone. And instead, we have you. We are curious whether you swim with the current or fight against it as they did.
This is excellent game writing. The entire game you've been hearing voices, even Bart from the Degassi complained about seeing things and hearing voices before he died. So getting here and hearing her talk about this feels incredible. The reveal, if you couldn't figure it out while coming here, is insanely well done and honestly one of the best in all of the video games I've ever played. In order to continue however, I need more ion cubes. I have one, but I also have an issue. If I use this one ion cube to continue the story, then I won't have any to activate the portal so I can just teleport out. But if I activate any of the portals to just teleport out, then I'll have none to use to continue the story. There is the infinitely generating ion cube fabricator, but I need a prawn suit for that, which I don't have yet. While debating what to do, I found another room with a dissected Sea Emperor fetus. The aliens that were here before me obviously couldn't get the eggs to open up, and being that the Sea Emperor is what makes the natural cure for the disease, they couldn't get more than this old mother was supplying and they couldn't cure it. And this means your only way to cure the disease is by hatching the eggs. The babies would give out the substance called enzyme 42, and that would cure the Chara virus, which is the bacteria you've been dying of the entire game. Going back to grab my ion cube, I decided to use it to portal my way out and make the prawn suit. The issue was I didn't know where any of the portals went and I only had the one cube, so I kinda had to save scum my way through to see where they all went. My only real issue here was the fact that portals take between 10 to 30 minutes to use now for some reason, and loading anything in this game has been non-stop bugginess the entire time. Eventually however, they worked. The first one brought me back to the Lost River, which I didn't exactly need to go to, so reloading my save I tried the second one, which worked, but I was almost 3,000 meters away from my Seamoth, so I again decided against that one. The third one, however, was pretty deep in the water, but it was also pretty close to my Seamoth, only 1,000 meters away. So I used this one, and despite the floating sand shark that tried to kill me, it worked perfectly fine. Swimming over to my Seamoth, I was tasked with getting a prawn suit, and after looking it up, turns out they can only be finished by getting all the pieces in the Aurora. So, back to the ship that started it all, I made a propulsion cannon to get myself into the part I hadn't gone into yet, and after trying it out on some crab things, I moved the boxes and entered the main entrance to the Aurora. Inside was pretty much the exact same as the other entrance, but of course, in order to continue, I needed a laser cutter, which I didn't have. So, going back to my escape pod, I made a laser cutter and came back. Entering the prawn bay, I learned how to make the prawn and even explored a bit, where I found some neat lore. Leaving, I sent a crab into space. Money! And went to find my MVB to make the prawn suit. Overall, its crafting recipe wasn't that bad. I had pretty much everything stored away on the Cyclops. So after moving it closer to the quarantine enforcement platform, I used the MVB to make my prawn, and then a huge issue I never thought about, finding the portal I used to get here. You see, I'm known for not being the brightest, and this here is where that, oddly enough, shines. I completely forgot that I would have to find the portal afterwards, so I needed to find it. Getting revenge on the warpers, I plunged into the deep in my mech suit. Walking alone on the seafloor in the prawn suit was one of the most surreal moments I had in this game. You know that footage you can find of people going into the deep trenches in subs or robots doing it for us? Piloting the mech suit down here felt like I was there, actually doing it, and it was an insanely good moment. Whoops. Yeah, remember those loading issues? Yeah, well they happen here too, and the issue is the prawn suit doesn't swim, so being in it and the world not loading means instant death. This happened twice, and it really pissed me off both times. I can understand if I died by misjudging a depth and falling too deep for the prawn suit to survive, but dying because the game bugging out is really annoying. After searching forever though, I found the portal and brought my prawn suit in it. Then I encountered another problem. You see these hands? They can't break this apart, and I need a grinder upgrade. You see, the grinder upgrade is only available not from the modification station, but from the vehicle upgrade station, which can only be built inside of a moon pool, which, if you can tell, a Cyclops submarine is not a moon pool. So, as far as I had gotten, I needed to fail the challenge for real this time to beat it. This pissed me off pretty hard. To get all this way doing the challenge perfectly, okay, maybe not perfectly, but doing it pretty well, only to be cucked in the end is really upsetting. But what can you do? So, failing the challenge for realsies, I made the grinder arm for my prawn suit, attached it, got me some more ion cubes, and then watched as a new chunk of ion cubes were zapped into existence. Using them, I unlocked every portal, cause why not, and then went to help the Sea Emperor. By turning on the machine, she talked to me once more.
My young need to hatch, to play outside this place. We have been here so long. The others built a passage to reach the world outside. I asked them for this freedom, but they could not hear me. If you help us, I will give you freely what the others tried in vain to take.
Turning on the other portal, she talked again.
With the passage you've opened, my young can leave this place. But first they must feel the time is right and break free of their shells. This is what the others could not force from me. To you, I give the secret willingly.
These hatching enzymes were the last hurdle of the game for me. I just needed the seeds from a bunch of different plants, and they were all pretty easy to get. 3 were an issue though. Ghostweed, eye stalks, and sea crown. Ghostweed, you may remember, is found in the Lost River. Eye stalks are found somewhere I had never been at this point, and I had no idea where sea crowns were. So after searching around for a bit, I had a pretty big brain idea. Since the Sea Emperor's cage has vents from all around the planet, she might just have all the plants in her cage somewhere, so I might just need to find them in there. So after some searching, I was actually right. Kind of. She had a few, including the sea crown, so thankfully that wasn't a problem, but I still needed the ghostweed and eye stalks. Knowing the ghostweed is in the Lost River, I took the portal there and was able to sneak around one of the most dangerous areas in the game and find the ghostweed without any problem. Lastly, I needed this eye stalks, and I had no idea where to find them. So after searching, I found they were only in one part of the map, the Deep Sparse Reef. Making sense that I hadn't been there yet, as you may gather by the name, it's just an empty chunk of land. I guess the devs needed a reason for the player to visit. Personally, I would have preferred going to the Sea Treader's path since I never actually ended up seeing them in game. Not that it really bothers me. Collecting the eye stalks, I went to my Cyclops to make the hatching enzymes, where I was attacked by the Sea Dragon Leviathan. He didn't actually do anything to me because he missed everything, but he stared with malicious intent as I left. With my pants now full, I returned to the Sea Emperor where I saw nothing and realized the Sea Emperor was merely a figment of my imagination, and the real Sea Emperor was the friends I made along the way. I'm only kidding, of course, it just took forever for her to load in, where I hatched her eggs and she had a touching moment with her children for the first time.
My young are swimming for the shallows. I thank you. Their freedom is my end. What will it be like, I wonder, to go to sleep and never wake up? Perhaps next we meet, I will be an ocean current, carrying seeds to a new land. Or a creature so small, it sees the gaps between the grains of sand. Farewell.
Afterwards, I left, and finally, after so long, the baby Sea Emperor's released goop of Enzyme 42. I stuck my hands in it, and it cured me of the Carabacteria, which was infecting me. With myself finally cured, I scanned myself to double check and went off to turn off the machine. Sticking my hand inside, the robot came out and stabbed me again. And then the entire station shut off. I was super comfortable keeping that device with the ability to wipe out the entire galaxy I was in inside of a decaying facility, but I couldn't remove it, so leaving, I was cured and the Sea Emperor babies were spitting their goop everywhere that would slowly clean the planet. All I had to do now was get picked up by the sunbeam. So I went back to my escape pod and listened to the radio, but instead of the sunbeam, I got a message from Altera telling me how to get into the captain's room since there was a rocket schematic in there. I was a little confused, to say the least. I was expecting to hear the sunbeam countdown, but nothing. I never heard anything from them. Searching it up reveals that if you don't turn off the gun in time, they get shot down. Wow, we couldn't have predicted that one. And if you do turn off the gun, they just say, hey, we can't save you, too much debris. This really annoyed me. I was incredibly happy to save the sunbeam and escape on it instead of just making the rocket. But of course, the people who made this game are deathly afraid of animating a human saving you and talking to you, so instead of that, they just give you a cheap cop-out so you can build a rocket. If you do want to see the sunbeam getting shot down, by the way, I obviously didn't get it on camera, so here's Markiplier reacting to it.
What is that? No, the red spike.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, that's not good.
I don't hate the rocket ending, by the way. I just think that those who do get the gun disabled in time should be rewarded with being able to at least see another human being before the game ends. Oh well though, that time has passed and now I need to make the rocket. This actually wasn't that bad. I entered the Aurora with the code that Altera gave me and got the blueprint to make a launch pad, which kind of goes against the whole save the ocean message I was trying to do. But well, I guess. Thankfully it's built the MVP so I don't have to fail the challenge again. So I used all the materials at my disposal and built the platform, then the engines, then the fuel compartment, which took ion power cells by the way, and the cockpit. With the Heavens Choir congratulating me for finishing.
Neptune 1 rocket online.
I entered the Neptune rocket, as it was called, and turned on its communications array, auxiliary power unit, hydraulic systems, its CPU, something that this game ironically destroyed for me, and I set up a time capsule. But the time capsule required a screenshot of something, and having not taken any, I just took a screenshot of the menu itself. Typing some dumb message, I turned on life support and sat down for liftoff. Launching, the same bird that introduced me to the game said goodbye, and I was sent into space. Of course, nothing goes smoothly on UComp's channel, and I was smashed into the debris field. Thankfully, it didn't kill me, and the Sea Emperor gave me a final message as we left.
What is a wave without the ocean? A beginning without an end. They are different, but they go together. Now you go among the stars, and I fall among the sand. We are different, but we go together.
And I did not beat Subnautica without building anything. Looking back, there's some things I definitely could have done to change this run, and I do actually think it's possible with better management of your ion cubes. But while doing this, I got kind of annoyed towards the end and I just ran with whatever I thought up on the first go. If I spent more time to just sit down and think, perhaps I would have thought of something else besides the prawn suit, but that's just what came up to my mind. As always, if you enjoyed this, please check a lot out of me and I really would appreciate any support given. And also, just a reminder to go check out Team C's at the very least. Even if you don't donate, just checking it out would help a ton. Thank you as always, and I'll see you in the next one.